All right, guys. Welcome to this presentation, Evolution of PvP. As you know, whoa, where am I getting that feedback? All right. So as you know, we released the EOC a year ago, and since then, you guys who are all sort of avid PvPers have been sort of struggling with the system. There's not as many people in the worldy, so we're here today to just discuss PvP. We'll run through some slides really quickly, probably no more than 5-10 minutes. And all these slides are going to do is just spell out what we think the problems are. And from reading the forums, ModPie's been on the chat channels talking to you all. And he's sort of collated feedback from you guys. So we'll go through what you guys think. And then once that's done, we'll just open the floor for some discussion. You can provide us with your ideas on how you would improve PvP, how you can get people back into PvP, and basically just make the game like it used to be for you guys, okay? So, let's get started.
Right, so a little bit of background to us. So, I started playing 11 years ago in Classic. The very first thing that happened to me in Classic, I came out of Tutorial Island, and this guy was like, hey, duel me. I was like, sweet, yeah, dueling. I lost all of my Tutorial Island items and got PK'd, which is just wonderful. However, from there, I started joining PK clans that were protecting skillers. So back in the day when it was PvP everywhere, there were people protecting, like clans to protect skillers. I started joining there, joining small teams, and that was great fun. But from there, when it moved into the wilderness, I started making tiny PK clans, just PKing with my friends, like killing people at Green Dragons, popping up to the Greater Demons. And then that eventually led me to join Enemy. Owners One came in to a TeamSpeak and said, hey, do you want to join my clan? And that's when I got into what quite possibly is my most favorite part of ever being in RuneScape, was PKing in a clan, like doing the massive 200v200 wars. They were just amazing, and like nothing has matched that awesomeness for me for PKing for a while. Whilst there, I staked my way to a P-hat. That was pretty cool. When the Wildy was taken away, it pretty much killed clanning. Like, clans just shut down, and it was just a horrible time to actually be a PKer at the time. And it took a little while for Bounty Hunter to appear. So instead, what I did was, me and friends, we created a Castle Wars clan, so I got my PKing kicks from there. So I used to basically what's called off-mage, so I used to just blanket barrage the enemy respawn, which was great fun. Nowadays, a bit sad really. I've tried PKing, especially in the EOC. I'm not much of a 1v1 PKer, so I didn't really do much in Edge. But I can't find anyone to PK anymore, and I was like, guys, this is a problem. It makes me sad. Considering when I compare it to the awesomeness of the 200v200 days, it's a horrible state of affairs, and I'm sure you can all agree, right? So yeah, I am very dedicated to getting PKing back, and I want to get back killing, basically.
For my part, I'm complete opposite of Pi. Pretty much a PvP noob. I started playing the game again about a year and a half ago. Really enjoy PVMing. I really enjoy the EOC. I think fighting bosses with that system is really fun. This is what I call my litany of fail, because I've been trying to do some PKing lately, and I've bankrupted myself, which is a bit of a shame, because as soon as I bankrupted myself, it took me out of the PvP loop completely, and I had to go back to PVM and skilling just to make cash, so I could buy a load more stuff that I could lose. I've tried the duel arena. Embarrassing, frankly, total fail. I really want to, the idea of PvP for me is really good. That thrill you can get from walking in the worldy. I've done it before. When Birthright of the Dwarfs was released, I found a load of muddy keys when I was whaling on Chaos Dwarfs. Thought I'd go up, give that a go. Walked in there, dead. Straight away, stun locked and killed. So basically, that's my story. It's pretty short and pathetic, I'm afraid. We'll just jump into the next slides now, which are all about what we're going to be doing. We've not got much time. It's a bit of a lie that we've got an hour. We've got 45 minutes and less now. We've got a limited amount of time to discuss each topic, so we'll try and keep things moving fast. We've got this whiteboard here to note down all your suggestions, and we'll take a big picture of it at the end so we can take your ideas away and take them back into the office and start moving on this. We'll do our best to get as many of your opinions on that board as we can, okay? Oh, my clicker, there we go. So, brief things that we have done and things that we want to do. We had an Ultimate Abilities update a little while ago. Hopefully those abilities that were updated are a little bit more useful to you guys. I'm seeing some shakes of heads, so that'll probably be a topic we talk about later. We've fixed the overhead health bar, so that should now actually accurately report when you're about to die, rather than lulling you into a false sense of security. You leave that last bit of food alone and then you're suddenly dead. Summoning fixes, we want to bring familiars back into play. They're all a bit, naff is the right word right now, I think?
Pretty naff. Yeah. Just a point, because this came up in game, we are buffing Beast of Burden's HP, because at the moment they're just getting KO'd instantly, so that is happening, so don't worry. Cool,
and PvP XP. We don't know how we're going to do it yet, but we definitely want to do it, because that is a very tangible reward for you guys. You go up there, as well as the wealth, you're getting the XP, which otherwise you would be going to PVM to get. It's about keeping people in that PvP loop that really want to stay there. And then World Event 2, the next one, will feature opt-in PvP in the open world. We're currently implementing that and testing it. It seems to be working quite well at the minute, but I can't give you too many more details on that without giving too much information about the world event away, but the kicks will be there. So next up. So this is where we go into the part where we go through your feedback and what we think as well, and each category. So we've got stuns and counters. We think stuns are useful. They're a bit too useful right now. It's really hard to avoid them. The only way of getting out of a stun or avoiding one is basically using anticipation, which is now the default start to a fight. And, you know, because freedom is overloaded, it clears dots and stuns. You're in this catch-22. Do you want to clear your stun, or do you want to clear the dot that's going to inevitably hit you if you do clear your stun? And then we wanted them to be used tactically, but now they're just the default. You have to do it, otherwise, if you don't get the first stun in, you're probably going to die. What you guys think? So there was a little bit of confusion. Guys on the forums, you all think that stuns are OP. The guys that were chatting to you.
Yeah, I went in game and did a talk in my mod FC, and they're like, no, stuns aren't OP. Keep them. I don't know if they're making bank and don't want me to change it, but yeah, it's kind of conflicting, and this is why like stuns are being brought up here, because we want to lobby you guys and see what you think.
Yeah. And then that final bullet point is just about how every fight starts with a stun. It narrows your tactical thought. You're immediately going in with the expectation that you're going to be hitting someone with a stun or getting hit by a stun. So there's no actual tactics beyond that really change, because there's no different opening to a fight. So next up, combat pacing. Everyone thinks they die too quickly. After dying many, many times in the wilderness, I totally agree with you. We think that you die too quickly. We think EOC has brought a lot more interaction into combat, though. And this is something that, when we started thinking about EOC, a lot of the people that were leaving the game were citing combat as being not interactive enough and not as much fun as they would like as being the main reason. Since we've implemented EOC, those issues when people exit have gone down dramatically, and we don't hear it as much. We think EOC is working really well in PVM. But PvP is still an issue. Like I say, fights are over too quickly. Every piece of damage that hits you feels like it's spike damage. And there's no real way to react against that, because you can't eat quick enough, you can't protect yourself quick enough. And there's not always time to think about what you're going to do. You've got your fight planned out in your head before it all starts. And so there's not much room to react to what people are doing against you, because you're just going through your rote. And the experience of PVM and PvP, which is something we didn't really envision when we designed it, they're completely different experiences. We wanted it to be the same, so you could take your PVM skills, or people that do a lot of PVM and aren't necessarily comfortable in PvP could switch to fighting a player, and it would be pretty much like fighting another boss monster, but one that's a little more savvy. You guys, you totally think it's a spam fest. This is a piece of feedback that has come across the board, so it's definitely something we want to look to address. And it's just about, basically, it's just about building up adrenaline until you get to threshold level, and you can start the big hits, basically. And people pretty much avoid ultimates because that just tanks your adrenaline. You've got nothing left. Melee guys, you seem to have a short end of the stick as well. Because it's really easy to avoid your big burst of damage. People just walk a couple of squares away and it's all gone. And range and mages seem to have all the fun. And again, fights over way too quickly. So I'm really bursting through these bits because I want to get to the part where your suggestions come in. So, armor. Yeah, kind of hate life points on armor. Is that, everyone agree with that? Just a quick raise of hands, shakes of heads. Lots are going on there. We want to keep the concept of the combat triangle alive. We'd like people to have a reason to take their top tier gear into the wilderness. That basically brings back lots of money being made from people dying in the wilderness. But right now it is too easy to get by on welfare gear. Sorry, I got a bit lost there. So, and bits of feedback on your side. Welfare gear, as I've just said, is just as effective as someone going in full Tetsu. You can just go in and really cheap stuff and be on a par with them. Life point bonuses aren't a big liking with you guys, and everyone is pretty much saying you'd like damage reduction instead. So you get you get that better. So what am I trying to say here? You get more benefit from your armor because everyone's on a par with life points, but you're taking less damage if you've got better armor on. You're frowning. And yeah, that last point is something we kind of agree with too, is hybrid gear is kind of rubbish. Next up is bringing in new blood to PvP. Right now, we're very much of the opinion that the wildy is endgame PvP. It's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk being taken when you cross that wall. You're going to lose quite a lot of stuff. If you're on a normal world, you might be able to protect one item. If you're on a high-risk world, then you expect to lose everything. And that's very off-putting to people who aren't well-versed in PvP, who don't have a long history of doing PvP. If you want to get skillers into the wilderness, then we need to make it more accessible for them earlier on, which means giving them a safe environment to work in and learn PvP in, and so that they can engage in PvP right from when they join the game all the way up to when they're proficient enough to cross the wall and come and join you guys in getting killed and being killers in the wilderness. So yeah, you guys, you want more stuff to skill in the wilderness. You want to get people in there so you can kill them or protect them and then feed that sort of wildy supply chain from the bottom up. And then Crucible Bounty Hunter, again, unsafe PvP was really good back in the day, but we need something, Crucible didn't really replace Bounty Hunter. That's what we wanted it to do, but it just didn't do the trick. And then obviously, clans are a massive part of PKing, and we need more opportunities for clans to come together and PK together. And then PvP worlds, obviously. If you can fight anywhere in the game and anyone's a target, you guys seem to think that's going to be a good shout. Next slide. So this is a contentious one, single-way and multi-way combat. From our perspective, the concept of single-way and multi-way combat is really abstract and hard to explain to a player who has never experienced it before, and without them sort of going onto Wikia and looking it up and reading a load of sort of information outside of the game first, they're never going to get it. The toggle, it was our solution to try and get around that. Unfortunately, it's just as confusing. The way that reacts, the time it takes to bring it online, and the fact that if you're in single-way combat and you attack someone in multi-way combat, you're instantly switched is really unintuitive for people. And we kind of think that having single-way and multi-way combat within the wilderness and anywhere else kind of splits the community a little, because people are averse to taking the risk of putting on their multi-way combat flags. They're worried. A lot of feedback we're getting is they're worried about getting ganked. From your guys' side, because you're all old pros and you understand the system, you think it's fine. The quote there is pretty much been said by a lot of people. The old way is fine if you knew how the zones worked. A lot of other people, as I say, saying multi-way is getting ganked. Single way is good if it's a planned fight, otherwise it's full of one-itemers who are just going up there to try their luck, basically, see if they can get away with it and come out with no risks to themselves, which is not the point of the wilderness. The wilderness is all about taking risks. And you really want Edgeville PKing back. Cool. Next slide up. So that's the last slide. This is just like a shotgun blast of things that you've been saying on the forums, things you've been saying in Pi's chat. So, on to the interesting bit, or at least interesting for us, because this is where we talk to you and you talk to us, and you give us the ideas. I'll get this out of the way. So, oh, crikey, that was loud. My ear was near a speaker. So, open floor, guys. Who wants to kick it off? We've got mics over here, so our little runner will run around.
Hello.
Is it on?
No.
Hi. I just would like to say that I am quite concerned that you think the wilderness is endgame PvP.
Okay.
Considering that, ModPie, your first experience of RuneScape was in the wilderness.
Yeah.
One of mine was. Suomi, the #1 player,
Yeah.
also set foot in the wilderness before doing anything else, and it's a really common occurrence. Because we have, when you cross that wall, you have assumed that it's a huge risk, but that's not the case. You're only in level 1 wilderness. And the reason we have those levels of wilderness is so that all players of all experience levels can participate in the wilderness. So it is already tiered in a way to suit all players. So I don't think you need to think along those lines.
Okay, that comment was more geared towards, we want a way in which we can kind of babysit people into the wilderness a bit more, because you can't disagree that there's quite a lot of people that are just too scared to go there. But actually, it's probably a lack of PKing knowledge, and if they just had just a bit of practice before they took that scary jump into the wilderness, even into level 1, right? Even that is incredibly daunting for a lot of players. And that's more to the point of, we want to prepare people for the wilderness. We definitely want people in the wilderness. We want that place full. But it's more to do with, we want to prep people. We don't want to, we're not saying, yeah, only go here when you're level 200 and you're fine. Just I don't know, a couple of weeks in a safer environment, say go to Castle Wars, do some PKing, and then jump in. Yeah? Cool.
I was thinking maybe on the tutorial island that if you want more people to become PKing, you should try to integrate it into the tutorial.
Yeah, that's definitely something we want to look at. A PvP tutorial is a big part. How we go about that is a big kind of question. Do we get all the noobs just to go in and have a massive melee? Because the problem we have with teaching PvP is actually PvP is more of a style thing. You know, every PKer has their own style. I mean, there's set ways, so you say I'm a Zerker, I'm a mage tank, I'm a Bridder. But what do we teach them? Apart from where on that guy, what do we teach them? Oh.
Hi, I just wanted to say, I'm more of a skiller. I'm not really versed in PvP very much, but some of the funnest experiences I've had in RuneScape have been skilling in the wilderness. I used to love going to the agility course and combining PKing with skilling. So I just feel that the best experience rate should really be in the wilderness, that players really need to be rewarded for taking that risk in order to skill. So I think that we should add more skilling opportunities to the wilderness, and that should definitely be reflected in the rewards that we get for doing so.
Definitely, we definitely agree with that, and I think that's what we tried to do with warbands. The problem is there's not enough PKers to match it, so actually this huge reward, there's no risk at the moment. So it's not risk versus rewards. I've got a huge document about 2 or 3 pages, a massive list full of things we could do. Really quick things or harder ones, like a high-level agility course, for instance. That's easy. There's bonus XP for using the anvils at the greater demons, that kind of thing. But until we actually get the risk in there, all we're really doing is giving away free XP, and we're going to end up with another problem like wall bans, and that's a problem. But yes, definitely, but let's get people PKing first.
Cool. Let's wait.
All right then. So one thing I've wanted to think about, other than adding like skilling rewards to the wilderness, is maybe the addition of like money-based rewards in the wilderness. Maybe say a new boss in the wilderness that could drop some sort of item that people find quite valuable within the game. What that will do is it will bring PVMers into the wilderness, and these PVMers, I mean, they've got to risk something if they're going to go to this new boss in the wilderness. So that's going to add some form of new PKing incentive for the people who want to go out and kill those people for money. And then along with that, you're also going to have clans forming together to make this possible. And at the same time, another thing that has to be considered is this won't turn out the same way that warbands did. The problem with warbands originally was because one clan became so overly dominant on what used to be like 2 worlds or 3 worlds at once. It was impossible to really make anything from it. I mean, most people who would go out to PK the people at warbands would basically die instantly. So with the addition of, say, a boss in the wilderness, what you're going to have is these bosses are all going to be on different worlds, so there's going to be different groups of people going to all these different PVMs trying to make some money from it. So that's just an idea, really, that could help.
Yeah, certainly a boss in the wilderness is definitely on our list of things to add. Like, for instance, the Chaos Ellie is completely dead. And like certain things, like the instant teleport to the corp, like completely removed the reason for the corp being in the wilderness, which makes me a little sad. But definitely, because PVMers go in their best gear, right? The problem with PKers is, once again, there's just not enough of them, right? God, I had a point.
That's all right. So yeah, if we want to get more PKers into the wildy, it's not about it's not just about feeding clans, because it starts small. I think this is something you've said in your post, Lordship, isn't it? And it's about getting loads of. Yeah. Yeah,
it's the big document, basically the food chain.
Yeah, it's about getting single people up there so that they can interact with people, whether that be dying or whether that be having their neck saved by someone else who's in a clan, and then that's how they get into clans. They can form up together. We want to do things as well like decent matchmaking, so you guys who do want to PK together and who aren't in a sort of formal structure like a clan can come together quite easily just by a click of a button. And you sort of group together, maybe transported to the same world, same area, and then you can go off as a group, and you'll all share the same interest. You can watch each other's backs. Yeah,
I remember what I was going to say now. The problem is there's no counter-clanning going on, right? Now, the way in which clans evolve is actually through the food chain. It is, you kind of start PKing on your own, and then you start PKing with your mates, and you're like, oh, this is fun, and then groups of PKers kind of come together and they eventually create clans. But PVM clans, they're massive. Like, zero PVM is huge, right? But there isn't a... yeah, don't worry. But there isn't a big enough PK clan to counter-clan that, and that's why we're putting a lot of effort into getting new people to PK. We need the numbers, because otherwise, yeah, you're right, the skillers and the PVMers, they're just going to dominate the PK clans, and it's a bit sad. Go on.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Hello? There we go. I think one of the main things is, like, you can't protect items, you can only protect one item, so people don't want to risk it. And I think if you could actually find more of a way to protect items within the wilderness, it might actually help. But on top of that also, you've got regular prayers. You can only use the smite on regular prayers, but you don't have it on curses. So it'd be really good to actually have it on both sets of prayers to be able to smite someone's items, but also ultimately have more items to save, because I think more people would risk it that way.
Yeah, certainly. The problem that I can see myself hitting there is the two prayer books are deliberately two prayer books. They're deliberately laid out so that they're two different styles. And where you say you don't have smite on curses, but then normal prayers doesn't have turmoil. and with the massive boost that gives you over piety. With the dropping more items is kind of a double-edged sword for us, because I can say, yeah, you drop more items, you lose more stuff, but then when you lose more stuff, less people want to PK because they're going to lose more stuff. So it's a bit of a tug of war, that one, and that's kind of finding the sweet spot is quite difficult for us.
Could you not just sort of implement maybe 2 items to save rather than the whole 4 that you could
Yeah, I think a
usually
high
do?
level prayer has been suggested.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
2 items would be a lot more risk anyway, because I think more people would be willing to risk more, even if you could just save that 1 item more, really.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot more effective as well.
Just an additional thought regarding the food chain. It will not work with the toggle, because if you have skillers and solo PKs out there, they cannot be attacked by teams.
Yeah.
So it has to go, and it has to revert to the zones.
So the problem we have with the zones is purely, and this is quite a simple thing to lay out, is the fact that they're not very well telegraphed. So jumping from one to the other, there's not I'd say a wall that you have to click on, or just something that really highlights where they are.
Yeah, I mean, a graphical update could fix that. I mean,
Yeah.
the colour of the
Yeah,
ground.
we'd have to do a big restructure of the wildy, but we also need
I
a
wouldn't
way of
restructure
sort of,
it. But
huh?
I wouldn't restructure it.
Well, it would
we'd
need
have
to
a
be
loose mob.
a few sort of more natural boundaries, so you can see that you're actually crossing into a different zone. And then we need a way of sort of easily, quickly, and clearly communicating that to players that are coming in for the first time, especially, so they understand what's going on. This is something that we kind of wrestled with when we decided on the toggle. In hindsight, we hold up our hands. The toggle is a bit of a cop-out. We want to sort of solve that issue, and it's just about finding the right way of doing it.
I think just better telegraphing the old single-way, multi-way would be better. It takes a little bit of time because obviously we need to implement the graphics, and that's something that we didn't have when we were making EOC. But now that we're putting aside time to help PvP, that's definitely something that we can pitch. And we do agree the toggle is not working.
Okay, yeah, I just want to talk about how you touched upon how binding shot starts a fight and people use binds because it's the way to start a fight.
Anticipation.
Well, that and too, but people start with binds because it gives you the edge in fights. I want to touch upon that how people, once you get an adrenaline advantage over another opponent, it's very difficult for the other person to get back into the fight because once you get to thresholds, the other person's forced to eat, and it means they lose their adrenaline. You can't get a proper fight going, and it becomes dominated by one person. Have you got any ideas to fix that?
Wow, comebacks. Not currently. I mean, if you guys have any ideas, then that would be brilliant. On the spot, I can't think of one right now, but that will rest in my brain and I will think. But
because I'm thinking you've got natural instinct as well, which draws all the adrenaline out of your opponent. Perhaps change it to a threshold. It might be easier then for another person to come back into the fight if they draw the adrenaline of your opponent. Because at the moment, once one person gets an advantage over another, you're very difficult to fight again.
That's a good point.
I just want to sort of add to that a little bit to do with how the different combat styles fight. Like some other people, I'm not much of a PvPer, but I've noticed that I think range tends to have stronger basics and weaker thresholds, and so it can be. I've kind of lost my point here a bit.
I get where you're heading to. It's something that comes up quite a lot. So, yeah, range. We hear that the thresholds are rubbish. Rapid fire, on the other hand, is just owns.
Rapid fire is great, but
yeah, I hear it's the only one. Snapshot. Yeah, I hear that an awful lot. Tell Mod Dean because he doesn't believe me. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I hear the mage has Gumph basics, but has really, really good thresholds. So, yeah, with regards to PvP, the abilities are definitely not there. It's quite difficult to go into this one because it's all very particular and nitty-gritty. But, yeah, carry on.
I think that's
Into the
Do you
mic.
have
I think
question,
that's
mate?
kind of what I got to say, actually.
Yeah? Did I get you? Okay, cool.
Okay, Mike.
I just wanted to go back to the point of skillers in the wilderness, and I think one of the main reasons why PKers tend not to think it is worth their time going killing skillers is because often they don't take any really high value items with them. So I think maybe a way to combat this might be to force skillers, in order to get the highest XP rates, to maybe bring items into the wilderness of high value. And also another thing that might be interesting to experiment with is if you had sort of situations where there's fierce competition for resources, then it might lead to PKing happening to compete over those resources. And at the moment I don't think there's any real things in the wilderness where you actually physically have to compete in order to be able to skill effectively at that area.
Yeah, the original idea of warbands was that, and we were kind of hoping the skillers would kill each other, but they kind of banded together. So maybe, I don't know, constricting warbands a little bit. Say only have it on a few worlds, limit the numbers that are there, then that might help.
Yeah, I just want to add to his idea, like you said about warbands, the problem is it's on every world, and there are not PKs on every world. I was thinking more, you could have a high-risk skilling environment, but have it in a shard or instance area which has PvP as well. You have it of a large enough area, but if people want these skills you'd need, then you wouldn't have the problems with empty worlds and empty wildernesses, and then people would actually come together to PvP
like
over them.
PvP sinkholes.
Kinda, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
I was thinking, if you don't have much cash and you want to start PvPing, it can
Oh,
be...
there you are. Sorry. I was like, where's the mic? Sorry.
It can be really hard to get started. I was thinking maybe an instance environment, an environment where you can, there are tiers of armor, and depending on your defense level, you can get that tier of armor, and you're both set with identical weapons and armor, and then it's really just down to skill with no food. It's literally just down to know how you know your abilities, and then you can stake money during that. But if you're in the duel arena and you want to do that, nothing stops them from putting on better armor, but you can't afford, which puts them at the advantage even if you are actually a better player. So if there could actually be a tiered armor with like a mini game or something, where you could both have exactly the same stats, and you could actually really fight each other with different skill and see what.
Yeah, that's definitely the kind of thing we're looking for with, say, an entry level to PKing, say. I wouldn't have that for main PKing, but purely because that will obviously flatten the diversity, and you want people to have different builds and different levels. But yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at for, say, an entry level PvP kind of thing, to get people started. And yeah, there needs to be more PvP centric armor. Like I think Fist of Gussix tried to do that, but that's pretty much dead now. There's the Rev Caves, and we need to buff that PvP armor as well. But yeah, more PvP centric armor. And you are right, the entry is a big barrier. So yeah.
Just want to build another point I built on earlier. Is there any plans to match up the disparity between offense and defense? Because most people will focus on offense. Obviously, one item risk, people are going to take a weapon because that's how you kill your opponent. Is there any plans to rebalance defensive abilities so people might actually use a shield in the wilderness, or maybe you could have protect item covering a weapon and a piece of armor, so people might actually be willing to take more balanced armor, so PvP could be more balanced?
Yeah, I was definitely looking at getting more people going the defensive style, because actually when EOC first came out, shields were owning people, and they were I think some fights were lasting 5 minutes. It was pretty crazy. But I think it boils down to the fact that if you only have one weapon, so one-handed, not like dual wielding or two-handed, then you're really limited to the damage output. You're limited to reflect. We need to buff Venge. I've heard that's pretty rubbish. But yeah, what we're going to be looking at is looking at basically only having one-handed weapon useful. I mean, obviously it won't match the damage output of going full Zerk, but yeah. Do you reckon that would help? Yeah.
One point I'd like to hammer down as well is Phoenix necklaces and portents. Phoenix necklaces are so overpowered, it's not even funny.
So what I've got written down there is basically a cooldown for the Phoenix necklace and the portents, because there's no cooldown on these things, and you can just keep on re-equipping them, and you can keep on not dying, and yeah, that's what's OP. So I was looking at a cooldown. Do you reckon that'll help?
Well, that could work. But another thing I was thinking of is what if you reduce the threshold of which it heals you at? So at the moment, if you wear pretty decent armor, a Phoenix necklace will heal you when you drop below 2,000 HP or so. or
make
if
it
that was
easier to KO,
considerably
yeah.
lower, so it wasn't a guaranteed heal, but it was like maybe you got lucky and it saved your life in this instance.
Yeah. So yeah, basically lower the threshold so that basically you can just spike out and kill the opponent easier. That's another way of looking at it.
Cool. Anyone who's not had the mic yet who wants to go? Go for it. You know you want to.
Yeah, regarding the entry level for PKing, one really good idea would be to make a lot of these new resources that you want to do available in free-to-play. Because if you remember back in the old days, there were these hordes of noobs, north of Varrock in Steel. And, when I first went into the wilderness, it was to collect runes in the Dark Warriors Fortress. There was that one Chaos rune, and that's how I made my money. Obviously, it's not relevant anymore. But if you have things like that, that will attract all these low levels in particular, so that the resources, things like bosses are for high levels, but it would be great to see some of that really cheap stuff as well that would draw in the noobs.
Yeah, that's really good. The problem we have with the wilderness, and I'm sure you can agree, is that we removed it in was it early 2007 or late 2006? You guys will be able to tell me. 2007, yeah. And then when we brought it back, 2011? So that's 5 years worth of updates that the wilderness didn't get. And that's the reason why it's suffering so much. And we definitely need to kind of buff it up to basically make the rewards useful now. But yeah, you are right. We need more noob-centric pickups.
I just got a question. What do you think about the sort of so-called honor code of PKing? So there's people don't like using soul split or protection prayers or any overhead prayers other than smite. And then there's the picking on the skillers idea, things like that.
So people mention the honor code, but I'm going to be honest here and say I don't remember an honor code. I remember just getting ganked in the wilderness. If I saw a level 3, I knew DI was coming to kick my ass. It's some scary stuff. If there wasn't honor code, then it would just be between friends. I don't remember the honor code. I don't remember there actually being one.
It's the honor code that nobody keeps to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no way to enforce honor.
I'm not saying I agree with it.
If you don't like your opponent, then just leave.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'd say PJing is a problem, but yeah.
Yeah, PJing's, yeah.
That's something we can look at, but... Go on, you're gagging. Go on. One more. I think you're going to explode.
Might just put your name on that mic.
No, it's just regarding the honor code. That's what makes PKing so fun. That it's human. I mean, you can reduce all of the bosses to methods, and you can whereas humans are just so unpredictable. It's that element of trust and betrayal. That's what makes every day in the wilderness is so different, and that's why it was so popular.
Yeah, I definitely put that in my document. All this time and effort we put into developing boss after boss after boss. We get that with PKing for so little effort, and it's so good.
And that was another problem with warbands, that it was so content driven. You had one way to play it, whereas when PKing was at its height, all you had was resources, and then all the humans created the structure around that. And we would love to see some more player-driven PKing rather than content-based stuff.
That would be awesome. It's just it's hard to create something that forces that to evolve. Those kind of things evolved over many, many years, and we just don't have that time frame, and it's kind of a scary issue to be looking at.
Just going back to the idea of one-iteming and not having the will to risk high-value items in the wilderness. Currently, the level system, as you go out the wilderness, takes account of your combat level. I thought it might be an interesting idea if you could make that system also take into account the amount that you're risking in combination with your level. Maybe the amount that you're risking affects. If you're risking loads, well, then you can fight someone, more people, or maybe easier opponents. So to give people those incentives, it might be an idea to build that in. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head how to build that system, and it's making my head hurt. There's quite a lot of things conflicting. I quite like the idea. In Bounty Hunter, where it kind of showed how much wealth you've got. So the people who didn't have much wealth, people just didn't PK them. They were like, no, go away. So maybe something a bit closer to that. But yeah, I've heard the leveling system is slightly off. We did a direct scaling, but because everyone's level 200, that's actually changed it. So yes, That's down on the whiteboard. That's something to think about.
Cool, yeah.
One of the things that I used to actually do was duel tournaments. And you took that out of the game, and I really enjoyed those. And now that's like a sort of PvP bit that, you know, it's a safe PvP, but maybe you could like incorporate something sort of similar to the duel tournaments again, but have like the group tournaments as well as the single player tournaments, because I think that'd be really good fun, because I really enjoy that.
The problem we had with the duel tournaments was that no one was doing them, but I think that was a problem with the initial buy-in and actually the number of players you needed to start it. I think you needed like 64 players, and that was the problem. So maybe if we can look at just making it as like a bracket system, so say you've only got 8 players, so you can go straight to the quarterfinals, that kind of thing, then maybe bringing that back.
You know, it could actually work if you maybe like, you know, like the shard worlds, like people have said. So if you had like a shard world every sort of few hours, sort of like the warband thing, but only in the safe PvP mode instead, maybe.
Just to push people together.
Yeah.
That's basically what we need to do. We need to push everyone who likes PKing together, and we need to get more people into that so it just grows.
But also, the German worlds and like the Brazilian worlds and things like that, they can't interact with anyone from the regular world. So maybe if you could incorporate a world that sort of groups them together as well, because otherwise you're missing out on a massive community of people.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Nice. Right, we're down to the last 5 minutes, guys. So if you want to say something, now's the chance. Stick your hand in the air.
I miss skulls. Can we have skulls back?
Skulls were interesting because the reason they were removed was because actually it was really easy to game that system. And we do like the idea of skulls whereby the aggressor is the one that risks more, but if we were going to bring back skulls, we'd want to do it in a way where it was less abusable.
Can't you just do it so like they just show if someone's like if they've actually just attacked someone, or maybe if to show if that person's killed someone, so if they kill someone they'll gain a skull?
You could do kill, but then I could say that would exacerbate the PJing and ragging problem.
I also want to bring up the point between, I think I mentioned it on my forum post, the differences between combat styles. If you want the triangle to work, you need similarities between the effects they have, like melee, smash, for example.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, I've tried melee PKing in EOC, and if people aren't aware of what it does, it's easy to remove the prayer and then get the damage down. Because a lot of people in PvP, they will protect prayer because they feel you can't outdo the damage that's being done.
Yeah, part of the problem is that the damage is so high, and actually sticking on that prayer and getting the 50% damage reduction seems to be a way of actually making the damage copable.
But then nobody ever dies. You lack the KO hit. That's why Smash is good, but at the same time it can be OP. I'm thinking the effects that you have between the combat styles, you need more similarities between them. So the combat styles have like matches, like for example, you got melee threshold, slaughter. Like it does triple damage when the target moves, but it's a basic for range. It needs more balance between the combat triangles, so it actually means the combat triangle can actually work and gives a reason to use different styles.
Yeah, we want to do that, but at the same time, we want to keep a kind of a style to each style. So we want, you know, mage to be that disabler and farcaster, and we want range to be the kiter that keeps you bound and moving around.
Yeah, because if mage is meant to be from distance, you have Dragon Breath as an ability which needs to be a melee distance.
Yeah,
there's a lot
Breath
of disparities between that.
No one's using Dragon Breath, so it needs some work.
Use it in PVM, so.
Well, as an adrenaline gainer, I bet. Yeah.
Cool. Any more?
The Death Swiftness for the range ability.
Yep.
That can really like waste a melee at the moment, and I was using it the other day when I was doing range. But maybe, you know, the melee one, the sort of melee version of it, it doesn't actually do any damage when you're attacking someone else. It only heals you, which is kind of like lame, really. It doesn't really do much. So maybe if you're a meleeer, you could maybe get something where you could target a person so that it hits them rather than like a mage or a ranger.
The reason why melee didn't get that is because melee has berserk, which is the equivalent. And if you're having trouble, then I'd suggest you barge and then kick them out of their range area.
Yeah, but but that doesn't always work.
No, it
Because
doesn't.
you know, they've got anticipation, but then if they can get you, and then you're sort of like bound to the spot, and then they run backwards.
That's part of the problem with
Yeah.
the freedom being overloaded.
Well, I mean, melee is really only useful when you're in a group situation. As a single way, it's useless.
Melee needs a
Completely
gap
useless.
closer, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more, guys? We're down to like last 2 minutes.
Last one? Okay.
Maybe last one, maybe not. Depends how quick you are.
Okay. I just wanted to go back to the point made by you, sorry I don't know your name, about adrenaline and PvP being a race to get adrenaline, and if you can't do that, well then you've lost the fight. And I just want to link that back into special attacks, because I know a lot of players are upset that special attacks have gone. I mean, God Swords and Dragon Claws, they're just not worth what they were before, and people just blatantly don't use them. I just thought that it might be a good idea if we could use special attacks again, maybe to solve that issue, by allowing players either the option of building up adrenaline to use a big attack, or going straight in there with the special attack, maybe losing adrenaline as a consequence to solve that issue.
One of the reasons why we use the adrenaline system is because spec attacks had a problem where you had access to instant spike damage, and that was causing people to one-hit KO. That's something we don't like. The problem we have with bringing back spec attacks is it's really hard for me to pitch it. I know Og isn't very... Og doesn't want us to make certain weapons OP. He doesn't want to make people have to have a massive armory, but I think that's something that we can work on, and I think there has to be some middle ground there. There has to be some way that we can get them back for you, because it's a massive point. I get it again and again and again and again.
Does that mean you'd never consider bringing special attacks back ever? Would you go that far?
No, I would not go that far. I would say that it's a contentious issue that we're going to have to back and forth about.
What if...
Okay, we got... What's the time, Sarah? Is that it? Okay, cool. Unfortunately, that's it for the questions part and discussion part. This is only the first step of our PvP journey from now on. Quick find code up there for the forum. Get on there, start posting feedback. John and I will be wandering around the event for the rest of the day. If you want to come and grab us for a chat, please do so. And yeah, keep the ideas coming in, because we really want this to be about the PvP community and Jagex coming together and solving the problem together, because I think up until now it's been us trying to do our thing, trying to figure out what you want, kind of getting confused on the message that you're giving, and then you guys getting a bit, that's not what we said, god damn it. So yeah, we really want this to be a bit more back and forth. We want to find out exactly what you think will fix the wilderness, fix PvP in general, and we want to try and do that in such a way that we can A, satisfy you guys who are already established PvKers, and bring loads more people back into the fold, so we get a new fresh blood into the cycle. That's it for today though in this discussion. Thank you very much for coming.